So hi friends, in the last class we have seen how to set up Linux file permissions and read, write and execute operations for user and for group and others. So today we are going to see about how can we change file ownerships. Okay, so now I'm in my Linux box. I switch to root user sudo su hyphen. So I'm in root user, right? So ls-lrt. So I have these three files in my directory, and I'm going to create a directory called ownership. Ownership permissions, right? So I have created directory called ownership permission. I will go to the directory by cding into it. So ownership permission. So now I'm going to create some files inside this particular directory. So I'm going to create a file called touch. So nginx.conf. So I have created a configuration file of nginx. So now if you see, we have these permissions. Of course, I don't care about permissions in this videos. So now I'm going to concentrate only on changing the ownership of the file. So here, so the first column of owner is user, and this belongs to the group. So now root user belongs to root group, right? So now the nginx conf file is having permissions for the group of root, and the username is root. So for example, let's create some users now. So I'm going to use add user command, user add command, and I'm going to create a test user. Okay, so I will do psswd and test-user. So I'm going to set up a password for this user. So I will keep the password short and sweet, but for you, I don't recommend this way. Keep a strong password for your Linux box. Okay, so now I have set up the password, and now what I'm going to do is I will add this test user with sudo permissions. So to add a user, the sudo permissions, you have very simple concept that you need to do. You have to add the user into the sudoers file. So how can we add the users into the sudoers file? You just execute a simple command vi sudo, and it will open a file in nano editor. So here under root user configuration, so you have to add the username over here. So the username is test-user. So copy the same content which the root user is having. So this is quite a bit complicated, but those who are already working on Linux, they will understand this. Those who don't have any Linux touch, so don't worry about it. Just consider this. I'm going to add root permissions for the test user as well. So, okay, so I have added the user into the sudo stem file, and I'm going to save. So what is the process of saving a file in nano editor? Press Ctrl X in your keyboard. It will ask you to save the modified buffer. Press Y and hit enter. So your user will be onboarded into the sudoers list. Okay, so that's fine. We have added a user and we have set up a password. So now we have a user to set up permissions for some configuration files. So I'm in ownership permission directory, and when I do ls-lrt, so you have nginx.conf and you have root user with root group. So now, okay, so now I'm going to modify the permission, the ownership of the file nginx.conf. So it's pretty simple. So we have seen a command to modify the file permission. So the command is chmod, right? So chmod is a command which basically applies the permission, the read, write, executable permissions for the files, and you can also delete the permission, all right? So now, so what I'm going to do is I will just apply the ownership permission using chown command. Okay, so chmod stands for change mode and chown stands for change ownership. Okay, so let's frame a command for that. So I am going to give chown, so which I'm going to use change ownership, and to which user you have to change the file ownership. So I have a test user which is created. I'm going to give test-user, and you have to separate your user and group with a colon, right? So, and again, the group name also test-user. So why? Because, okay, so why? Because while you are creating test user in your Linux box, not only test user, any user in your Linux box, automatically a group with the same username will be created. So that means username and the group name look same. Okay, so now I'm going to give nginx.conf. So okay, let's see by executing this command in that particular directory. Okay, so copy the command, go to the Linux box and paste it over here and enter. Okay, can you do ls-lrt? So you can see the root is completely changed to test user. Okay, that's fine. So I have test user, both are belongs to the username and the group name, both are same. So can we assign a different group name to this particular file? So that means this file will be accessed by owned by the test user, and the people, those who belongs to this particular group, they can also own this nginx.configuration file. Okay, so let's do that. So the command should be chown and test-user and with a colon, right? With a colon. And I'm going to give a group name as, what group name I can give for you? Root. Okay. So I'm going to give a user privilege for the test user. I mean, user ownership for the test user and a group ownership for root user to nginx.conf file. Okay, let's execute this. And when you do ls-lrt, see here, only the username was allocated to test user. I mean, the ownership is allocated to only test user. And the people, those who belongs to this particular root group are given the permission with nginx.conf. So this is how you can change ownership, and you can change with a different group name. So this is how you can execute chown command. Okay, so but there is a typical scenario. Okay, let's come out of this directory, pwd, and do ls. You can see 4 different files in your directory, the root home directory, ls-lrt. So 2 different directories. So now I have, even though I change files in ownership permission to the test user, okay, so let's get into this particular directory, ownership permission, do ll. You see a test user is there, okay, and the group still remains root, but outside of this directory nothing changed, it's completely root mode, right? To ll, you can see the ownership file permission is again root. So now how can I change the permissions to the entire directory? So it's pretty simple. chown, right? You have to give capital R. So when you say R, recursively you have to update the permissions. And when I say recursively, whatever the files existed in this ownership permission directory, all those files should have the ownership for this particular user or the group that you're going to mention. So I'm going to give test-user and colon test-user. And if you see the previous output over here, when you do ll in the file, you will be able to see there is a test user and there is a root user, and root is the group and test user is the user, right? So now when I'm going to give a chown command with -r and test user to the test user, and I'm going to give the file name, or sorry, the directory name, right? Ownership permission. And when you do enter and do ll, you can see the directory permission, the ownership will be updated over here. Now, what happens to the files inside the directory? Do they change permissions and ownerships too? So let's see that. CD into this particular directory and enter to LL. You will be able to see all the files except this hidden file updated with test user and test user. And because this is a hidden directory, so that is the reason it was not updated. So now for the files, it is updated, but the directories, it is not. Let's create a directory in this file, ownership permission, test directory. And now again, come back to ownership permission, execute the same command, right, done. And now get into the ownership directory again and do LL. Still, you can see this hidden directory is not updated. But the directory user and directory group for the test directory has been updated. Okay, so always remember the hidden directories in your Linux box will not be updated. Okay, so you have to use dot in before a directory name so that it can update all the directories, user and group. All right, that's it for this session. In the coming sessions, we will discuss about a lot more Linux permissions, file permissions, and shell access, restricting user to a shell. All these details we will discuss in the coming sessions. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.